Morning, team. I am so excited about doing the work we're doing this summer so that we can make this year the best year ever at Bayside High. We've got a lot of things to talk about and do, and a lot of work to be done with scheduling and facilities things. But one of the things I wanted to take the time out for today and probably a couple days this week is to talk about our role as supervisors. Okay, so before we get started talking about it, we want to do this quick activity. So we'll have you guys pair up. Let's see, Miss Spano and Mr. Slater. Since y'all are married, we'll split y'all up. So Slater, you and Zach, you guys pair up, and then Miss Spano, you and Mr. Belding pair up. I'm going to give you guys a stack of cards in just a second, and you're going to have to tell each other, or you're going to have to get each other to guess what's on the card. Here's the trick, though. I'm going to give you about 1 minute before we get started with the cards, and you're going to come up with a nonverbal language. The only rule is you can't have any words or sounds coming from your mouth. Anything else is fair game. Before we get started, I want to switch something up. Mr. Belding, you actually go with Mr. Slater, and then Zach, you and Miss Spano join up. You have different languages that you were planning on using, so now you've got to figure it out. And go. Good job, Mr. Belding. That was some great guessing. So this had a point, other than taking a few minutes of our time before we get started with the real serious work. One of the things that we as people should do, but for sure that we as supervisors of teachers, one of the things we have to do is we have to be adaptable. We have to be able to communicate in different ways with different people, based on what's happening in those different circumstances and situations. And so big part of what we're looking at today as we talk about supervising teachers is how we communicate and how we act and react to different situations and circumstances and different people, and how we understand what the people we're working with, the teachers we supervise, how we understand what they need in each different circumstance. So as we dive in for the real work we'll be doing all day today, we look at the agenda, and I'll actually take it from the bottom going up. The first thing at the bottom there is who has the control. What this is talking about is when we're dealing with a teacher, when we're supervising a teacher, and when we see an issue, who has the control, and who is it us, or is it the teacher that's kind of in charge of what's going to happen to remedy an issue that needs to be dealt with? There are times where you as the supervisor have to step in and really have to take control of an issue. And there's times where you as a supervisor, the best thing you can do is let the teacher be in charge of making a change. Let the teacher be in charge of how long they'll have to make a change in their classroom to lead to more effective instruction. With diagnosis and prescription, it's just what it sounds like. If you go to the doctor tells you what he thinks is wrong or what she thinks is wrong, and then the doctor gives you a medicine, a remedy to fix that problem. And diagnosis and prescription in the classroom is the same idea. You as the supervisor are going to see things, and you're going to let teachers know what you think can be done to improve what they're doing. And sometimes those things are really simple, and it may just be kind of like you get a medicine where you take it once and you feel better, or it may be something that's a bigger long-term change, like changing your whole diet or changing an exercise routine. It's the same thing with education and with supervising teachers, where you may be making bigger long-term suggestions to a teacher. When it comes to helping the marginally effective teacher, here's the deal. We know we have awesome teachers here. We know we have teachers who are great, but everyone can improve. And we're not saying that we don't want to help those teachers who have won awards be even better. But we do want to recognize that when we see a teacher who's probably not great, who's marginally effective, we're going to take an extra measure to really try and work with them and get that not so great teaching to a high quality level, so that the kids in those classes aren't missing out just because they don't have the right person on their schedule. And then lastly, and this is really what will theme the rest of what we do all day today, is the supervisory styles. Essentially, there's three kind of ways you can deal with the teachers. There's the directive approach, which is where you're kind of just you as a teacher have skills, and I as the supervisor am helping you see areas you need to grow. I'm just going to tell you things that'll make you more effective. The collaborative approach is the idea that you and a teacher or even a small group will work together as kind of a problem solving group to think through ways that you can help instruction become more effective. And then lastly is the non-directive approach. And essentially here you're kind of saying the teacher is able to, you give some guidance maybe, but really they're kind of getting revelation as to how to be better teachers. The important thing to understand is that these three styles will be expected from all of you guys as an administrative team. We don't have one style. We each have to be able to adapt to each teacher and each situation. And that's what we'll really be talking about today. That was kind of the idea behind the introductory thing we did. So can't wait to unpack this more as we go throughout the training. The diagnosis and prescription, the issue of timing and timelines. There's going to be times where, a teacher needs something to change in their classroom or in their teaching style or something along those lines. And one of the things we want to make sure we do is that we are, for ourselves, really clear on the expectations for how long something should take to remedy, but also that we are clear with the teachers. One of the things you don't want to do is have a walkthrough or have an interaction early on with the teacher where you come up with this idea that maybe they need to have better connection to real life for the kids, and also post classroom rules, and leave this open-ended thing where you say, well, those collectively will take 6 months to fix, because the deal is, it's going to take some time to fix or to deal with a teaching style. But posting classroom rules, that's really easy. That should take a day. It shouldn't take any time at all to be able to do something like that. And so you want to have an idea for every issue that you see that needs to be addressed with how long that's going to take to remedy. If it's something super simple, then let the teacher know that, like, hey, we've got this and this and this that might take all year that we'll continue to work through, and these things that even great teachers continue to struggle with. But then we've got this other issue that is really simple and really shouldn't take more than a day to just get a fix to. Because if we don't ever have those clear timelines, then either you'll have teachers who think, oh, I have open-ended amounts of time to address simple things I should be able to fix quickly. Or you could have teachers who, stress and worry and think, oh, I've got to fix my, lesson delivery immediately or I'm going to be in trouble. Because if if they're dealing with things that they can quick fix, and then they have this bigger issue and they don't realize that they get more time for that. So just, we need to be, like I said, for ourselves, we need to be aware of what those things look like and how the timing should work. And then we need to be really clear with our teachers that we supervise. If a teacher can do something quickly, let them know. And if it's not, then let them know that too, whatever the issues might be. So here's the nuts and bolts. And really this idea that we'll talk about for the next couple minutes is really the backbone of everything we'll be talking about through this whole day. As we dive into the supervisory styles, as we dive into those things that need longer or shorter timelines, as we dive into just all the bits and pieces of what we're doing. At the end of the day, the reason we're having this training, the reason we're taking the time to do this today is to talk through what it looks like for us, the administrative team, to be able to meet our teachers where they need to be met. Hopefully we all have the same goal. Our goal isn't to be the one in charge. Our goal isn't to be, to have some title or anything like that. Our goal, hopefully, is to help students learn, and really to help them learn by helping the teachers be the highest quality, best teachers that they can be. Whether they are a brand new, going to struggle with certain things teacher, whether they're a 30-year vet who's won awards, who might just need some redirection in small areas. Obviously, from the slide, the biggest part of this idea is being flexible. Like with the example earlier, there's not always the one way to do something. We all have personality types. We all have strengths. We all have ways that we tend to, as our default, react to people and talk to people. What we have to understand is it's okay to say, I'm type A, I tend to be very, structured, or I'm, this color on the true colors thing. It's okay to say that. But the other side of that is we have to understand, and this is why we're in this role, that everyone we deal with isn't that same type. They're not geared that same way. And so we've got to be able to meet those teachers where they need to be. It's not always about, if you're blue or a green or an orange. Sometimes it's about, you've got a teacher who is super motivated. They really want to do a great job, and they just aren't aware of the things that they lack. And the way you come to them is going to be different than someone who just really isn't committed, and it seems for whatever reason like they're just kind of here to get a paycheck and get through the day or the month or the semester. And it's not a personality type issue at that point. It's one might need a directive, like you have to do these things, and one might really need that non-directive. And again, we'll unpack what all these types are throughout the day. But it may be that one teacher just kind of needs some ideas and suggestions. And maybe another teacher says, I don't have any idea what's going wrong. And so just how you talk to them, it's going to change for every teacher, and even for the same teacher on different issues. I had someone I worked with years ago that they were a science teacher, and we had an issue where they were really committed. They loved teaching. They really loved working with the kids. They had some simple things like not putting objectives on the board. And it was a quick, simple thing, not a big deal. I don't need to berate you. I don't need to really have even a big discussion. I just need to say, hey, you're not aware of this. You're missing some stuff on the board. It's not a big deal, but let's get it cleared up quickly. 2 months later, that same teacher, I hear again, a science teacher, is kind of a conspiracy theory person, and whatever you feel and believe about all that type of stuff is fine. But as a science teacher, it's not your job to lecture the kids on JFK and the grassy knoll and all these things. And so for that, we had to have a different conversation. Part of it is, instead of it being just don't do this, we kind of had to let him get to the point of understanding, like, hey, here's why this is a problem, things like that. The other part of this idea of being flexible and meeting them where they need is kind of going back to the personality type even a little. We need to know the difference between being direct and directive style approach. You can be direct, which just means you're being clear. Doesn't mean you're harsh, but you can be direct with your teachers that you supervise. And that's not always the same as the directive style approach. That directive style is really key when you're dealing with someone who tends to have lower level commitment and is unaware. They're not doing all they can to get better and just don't know how. They're also not, super aware of how, but not to get better, but not necessarily trying to. They're really kind of that quadrant one. They need help in every different way. And so it doesn't mean all of a sudden we turn harsh. It just means we're very clear with, here's the things you should be doing. And so we take that directive approach. So we want to make sure with all of that we are understanding what is our default, because that's an important part is kind of what do we tend to want to be. And then where are those times and when are those situations when we need to be a different type of teacher. And then, the other big part of it is today for us to understand our strengths and weaknesses with those styles, and also for us to just kind of talk through when are some times that it will probably make sense to use this style versus this style, so that when we get to mid-October and we're tired and we haven't had a break in a while and Thanksgiving's still a whole month away, we don't just default to, I'm going to tell you what to do and do it this way, and I'm going to be directive or maybe even overbearing and direct. And instead, saying, okay, this is a situation I know we've talked through. This is a time to be, collaborative or whatever the case might be. So I can't wait to see you guys' ideas on these styles, and I can't wait to share some of the ideas I have as we, again, it all goes back to our goal is making teachers better, and a big part of that is meeting them where they need to be met so that they can be the highest quality, best teachers possible. All right, let's get into it.